Good morning, everybody. I am on my way to Costco, which means I've got some time to talk a little bit off the cuff with you all about several things that have been in my mind lately as we approach the holidays. I personally am in a spot now where it's a Saturday morning here, and I'm getting ready to do three concerts this weekend, two with Contorai, one with the high school choirs, and I'm just really excited to be busy performing at the holidays again. I don't know what else to say about that in the sense that of course, the last year we were told to embrace and enjoy our time away from all of the things that we used to do, and we were told that that's virtuous and that we should do less and be less productive, engage in less performance, make it be about something else, and all of that, maybe was the necessity of the moment a year ago, or even now coming close to 2 years ago. But it's also virtuous to engage in our art form in public, in front of people. The audiences need the performances. We, in my view, a lot of our conversations as a profession about this topic of how important is the performance has always been very us-centered. As I listen to people talk about that, like how important is the performance? Well, to who? To who? To the people in the room as we are preparing for a program of choral music. Of course, the performance is the goal for everybody involved. Now, does that mean that there aren't other little goals along the way that we can achieve during the rehearsal? Of course. Yeah, of course. And so it's, again, part of this rhetoric, and it tends to happen online the most because online it's harder for us to have any type of multifaceted, nuanced rhetoric on anything. It's either this or this. So we start to have these conversations like, is the performance important, or is the rehearsal and the process important? No, that's not a question. That's not the question. They're both important. It's for what purposes are each thing important, and to what degree do we think about either of those things in the given context, in an actual conversation or in an actual life that we live off the internet. You can think about those things, but they don't play very well in Facebook groups, right? So this has been the kind of spinning on in my thoughts as I go through this busy December where, in my life that means 12, 13, sometimes 14 performances with various groups in a span of 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks in December, depending on the calendar. It's crazy busy. I almost never see my kids. It's stressful. So many plates spinning in the air of keeping, anywhere from 20 to 100 plus people's lives organized so that they're all in the place they need to be for the events to happen. And it's incredibly stressful. And of course, I'm talking to mostly choir people right now who, you get it. You understand how stressful this time of year is. And what I'm going to suggest, though, is that because it's stressful doesn't make it bad. There are so many benefits that the community receives from our work during this time. And my thought to remind you today is that the work you are doing at this time of year matters to people. Even it matters to the audience. It matters to the little old lady who shows up at your concert and has extremely powerful memories of hearing Silent Night when she was a kid with maybe a relative who's no longer alive. Or maybe it means something to hear that for her. Maybe it means something to an audience member this year who this is their first time coming out to a public event, whether it be a high school concert or a professional concert or whatever it is, and they need the music to soothe or to touch something in their soul. And so when we downplay, when we poo-poo the performance, what are we poo-pooing exactly? I don't understand that. The performance is critical. It's critical, and not just for us as the director, because it is a way for us to receive a little bit of validation for all that work and all that behind-the-scenes organization and all those skills that we have been imparting upon our singers. But it matters for the audience member, it matters for the chorus members, who are also putting in that work. And why do they do it? They want to do it because they want to share. They want to share. And I think sometimes when we have this conversation, when I said earlier that it's us-centered, we focus on whether or not the performance is an expression of our own ego. Well, yeah, it is, but that can also be discussed in a way that is psychologically healthy versus not, which means it's a question of balance, right? Do I want my choirs to be perceived as good? Of course. Do I? But is that an expression of my ego? Yeah, sure, I guess. But at the same time, I also know that audiences appreciate good. They like to hear choirs that are in tune, where the sound rings throughout the space, where the reverb is washing over them in the same key that the song was intended to be in. Those types of things are, those critical technical elements are the things we work on so hard so that the audience doesn't have to work so hard to listen and enjoy, right? So these are the kind of the basic things that I feel like some of us are losing when we try to justify doing less, backing off from the schedule, all those types of things. And now I also want to be clear, those are personal decisions. If someone's mental health is the issue with the busy holiday season, then of course people need to take care of themselves. But if you enjoy this, if you enjoy the tourist season for choirs, which is what I sometimes call December, then embrace it. Embrace it. And I have this conversation with my kids every December, and of course I didn't need to have the conversation last year because basically everything was canceled. I think all I did as far as performance last December was making a very poor quality video concert with my kids at school. That was the one performance outlet, and I was glad to do it. I thought it was important even then to do that, but this year it's pretty much the full schedule of doing all the things. And so I'm excited. I have this conversation with my kids where I have to say, guys, you might not remember this because it's been 2 years since my schedule was like this, but I don't get to see you much this week. And I don't get to see you much for really 10 days. And I'm at rehearsals every night and performances every night, and this is going to last a while. But next week, when Christmas break starts, I am all yours. And we're going to go on trips together. We're going to hang out together all day long in our pajamas, and we're going to watch movies, and we're going to do all those things. And they get it. And that also creates value for my kids, for my wife, where that busy schedule, it's almost like dissonance in a chord that resolves, right? That the dissonance is painful in the moment, but that also adds value to the resolution, which means that my kids miss me, and it makes the holidays even more special when we are able to spend dedicated time together. And so I think that's important, and I embrace it, and I love it. It's one of the things that is most fun for me as a choral musician is the month of December. Another tangential topic, I guess, but it's related, is that the concerts that I will be doing this year in December are all masks optional. Okay, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit because that's something I've been seeing creep back up as COVID surges in many places throughout the country, including a slight uptick where I am from the last couple of weeks. For those of you who are still not understanding a couple topics, first of all, let's get some basics out of the way. COVID is never going away. As has been presented to you on this show by many experts, I'm not going to rehash all of it, but that is the consensus at this point. That is not a controversial statement. Zero risk for COVID is never going to be a part of our life ever again. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, COVID is seasonal, which means that we will, in my area, be hitting a surge of COVID cases every single year for the rest of our life during this time of year. Now, how much we care about that in 5 years from now will be a question of politics, and it will also be a question of, downstream from politics, how much we are focused on case numbers versus how much we are focused on severe outcomes from those cases. Because, of course, as the virus reaches endemicity, or being endemic in the population rather than pandemic, that simply means that immunity will have been built up and built up and built up to the point where we will probably think on a conscious level of COVID as a pretty severe cold. Okay, And that's what endemic means. It means it's not going anywhere. And that has, interestingly, was the prediction of Amish Adalja all the way back in episode 33 of the show in May of 2020. At that point already, amongst he and his colleagues at Johns Hopkins and the Center for Pandemic Preparedness and all of that, the folks that he works with, that even back then, COVID was not going away, and a vaccine would not cause us to have zero risk. Okay, so all of those things are true. And so what we then have to kind of wrestle with as a choral profession, in my opinion, is that we have to stop asking questions about whether or not something is safe, as if safe is a scientific word, because it isn't. It is a subjective term. What is safe to one person is not the same as safe to another person. So asking a scientist what is safe has never been the right question. Because then it's yes or no. Yes, it's safe, or no, it's not safe. And that's at which point that's subjective, because what is the threshold? That would be a values question. That would be a political question, other types of question, philosophical question, but it's not a scientific question. So we're going to be wrestling with that idea of what is safe for one group of singers in one context might be not safe for another. Risk tolerance plays into it as well. You know, I deal with mostly vaccinated adults and kids, right? Kids for whom the risk has always been, since pre-vaccine, the risk for kids has been astronomically low. And even today, if you are, again, this is stuff you can go check out if any of this, if you're worried about any of what I'm saying being factual, but I feel confident saying that these things are true, which is that it is still true to this day that a vaccinated adult, say over 50, you're fully vaccinated, triple dose even, over 50, your risks are still higher from COVID than an unvaccinated 8-year-old. And that's something that people don't quite understand, at least in my conversations that I tend to have with people. So the point of that, really, all I'm trying to express is that what is considered safe amongst one group of choir people might not be the same everywhere, and it might not be the same for you personally as it is for them. And what we've got to stop doing as a profession is judging each other for what we choose to do going forward, because it is not a question anymore, in my opinion, as simply being everything should just be shut down and fully masked all the time. Because based on the rationale that is being used for that is that we keep waiting for the risk to be zero, and it's just that will never happen. At which point we have to decide there is some level of risk that we will take in order to feed our souls, because our mental health matters, our ability to make a living matters. We have to stop telling people that engaging in choral singing is so risky that we should be constantly wearing hazmat suits. Okay, and because there are some, we know enough now to know which people with pretty good accuracy. In fact, I would say probably more than anything in the history of medical science, we've collected data on what types of people demographically and with their health conditions should be at every choir event in a fit tested N95. You're immune compromised, obese, diabetic, over 65, any of those types of factors, we should know that those people have extra layers of protection that are necessary. Speaking of which, the Resonance Singer's Mask has come out with a new N95 version. Whoa, that's a game changer. Because if you've got those at-risk people in your choir, they need to know about that there is a new product. You can use Choralosophy at checkout, get a discount. It's the same price as the old one, which is awesome, but it's an enhanced safety version for the wearer. So check that out. Okay, so this is so important. So kind of back to my concerts that we're doing this weekend. There is no mask mandate where I live right now. Now that's going to continue to be fought about. Right? People are going to fight about that. That's fine. But it's not required, and the people involved are vaccinated. In fact, most of my students are vaccinated too. And so we're at a place where the value of seeing each other's faces and singing without anxiety and singing without fear is of a very high value to us. And so we're willing to take some incremental, and it is really incremental, tiny, infinitesimally increased risk of COVID transmission so that we can have a Christmas concert. Because that's meaningful for people. And when it's meaningful for people, it has benefits, not only brain and body, but also health long term. So the question cannot simply always be, how do we make COVID risks as low as possible? That's step one, and then everything else is step 2, 3, and 4. That can't go on forever. And that's my opinion. You don't have to share it. You don't have to share that opinion. But that is my opinion, and it is clearly, looking at my Facebook feed of colleagues all over the country, that is their opinion too. And we have differences of opinion. And if you really strongly believe that your choir should continue to be masked, then do that. You won't see me on this platform giving you shit. You will see me telling you what I think I want to do and what my singers want to do. Okay, that should be where we are moving, to a place where, because again, this is my opinion and I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're going to be in this situation for years, where because COVID's not going to go away and because people are reasoning based on a zero risk fallacy, we will have people who continue to want to fight about these things. And I'm at the point now where I'm just not going to fight with you about it. I'm not going to fight with you about it. I'm going to give my reasoning for what I think that we're going to do, and as following our local health experts, as I advocate any chance I get that that's what you should be doing too. They know more than the choir director on Facebook who you're taking advice from. And if we're in a situation where they're weighing other risks against other risks, which is what we should have been doing since the very beginning, then that's good. And that's where we should be headed. And so one more note on masks. I'm almost to Costco. So there is also, I think, at the root of this controversy, I guess you could say, is that there is a lack of understanding about how masks work. And I'm going to put some stuff in the show notes to kind of document this and show you what some of my sources are. But of course, if you're talking about an entire choir wearing for an hour and a half long concert and everybody's wearing cloth masks, I really am sorry to burst a security bubble, but that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Cloth masks on the source of a potentially infected person and a cloth mask on non-infected people gives you about 25 to 30 minutes of protection if you're in a shared air environment. So if your concert lasts more than 30 minutes, which, by the way, that's why the ACDA aerosol study still recommends, if your concern is COVID first, okay, then your event shouldn't be more than 30 minutes until you recirculate the air. Okay. Now, all of that kind of stuff is dependent upon the quality of the ventilation in your space, the cubic feet of air in your space, how many people are there, all of those types of things. So that 30-minute number is just an average. And they explain that pretty well in the study as well. But what we've done is we've told ourselves that masks work. Therefore, any kind of mask works for any amount of time doing anything that we're doing. And of course, that's not true. That's not true. So if you are concerned, if COVID is number one, then you are in a really odd place of judging others. If you are doing a cloth masked concert that lasts an hour and a half, while judging people who are doing unmasked concerts. Because by the end of that concert, everybody is still sharing air in those cloth masks. Okay? And in N95, or a resonance mask, the Resonance 95, which is what they're calling it, that would be your solution to having a concert that is masked, but actually a full-length concert that's still, significantly mitigating COVID risk during that amount of time. Surgical masks, of course, are in between. They give you a little bit more time, but that, again, assumes that everybody is wearing it in the optimal way. And we're talking about, like, with the ear loop idea with the surgical masks where they're pulled like pretty darn tight across the face. I would have to shave my beard if I want if I wanted to have any significant protection from a surgical mask or an N95, because it's, as many studies have shown now, all it takes is about a 3% leak around the side of a mask for that mask to fall to 0% effectiveness. So there's just so much nuance to this topic that makes it really frustrating for me in my position of having been educated on this stuff by experts, because that's kind of what I've tried to do, so that when I talk to you guys about it, I'm not talking out of my ass, because I do take information about this topic very seriously. Because again, and I think if you are a regular listener, you already know this about me, but I kind of label myself as a COVID centrist, meaning I take information about this very seriously, because COVID to highly at-risk people is a very, very big deal. And I don't want any kind of misinformation on my conscience. So if you think that the science of what I'm talking about is wrong, I want to hear about that. I want to hear your sources. But again, what I'm trying to draw the line between is what is a question of science and what is a question of risk tolerance and what is subjective. Because a lot of this, from the very beginning, has been subjective. How much risk are you willing to tolerate? And we all, every single time we walk outside of our house, we agree to tolerate some level of risk. And that will always be the case. So what I would encourage everyone to do is, at the very least, before you fly off the handle at somebody, at the very least, consider the fact that they might simply be answering some subjective questions differently than you are. Because their life experience is different, because their health situation is different, because they have other types of people in their lives that they're either higher risk, lower risk. Everybody's situation, their circle, their bubble is different. And so we also have to consider the mental health needs of our singers. And I think after this long, extended doom and gloom, this holiday season can and will be a very potentially healing and soothing time of year, as we sing for people to give them hope. And that has always been the power of choral music, is that we are able to sing hope into people's hearts, people we've never met, people that we will never have a conversation with, and they sit down in our audience and we sing emotion into their body. That is a powerful, powerful tool. And it comes with risks, as many, many things of value do. And so that's my food for thought for today. I am going to go load up on some holiday gear at Costco. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I very well may have triggered some people with this, but that's okay. I'm all about the conversation. So as you sign off today, don't forget to like, share, leave a comment. If you disagree, send an email. Go to Choral Osphor's Facebook page and let me have it.